we have the honor to be with us Professor Foad Izadi, a professor of Tehran University. Welcome to Military News.
Thank you.
Professor.
Thank you.
It is very important to talk directly with Tehran, which is difficult, and to listen directly the voice of Tehran, because sometimes it's being distorted. So today, do you believe it can be a crucial day, the negotiations, the informal third round of the indirect talks in Geneva for the nuclear program, or not? What do you expect from today's negotiations?
You know, if you are a student of history, you should not be very optimistic. Last time Iran and US engaged in diplomatic talks, the United States attacked Iran in the middle of negotiations. Trump left the agreement that Iran made in 2015 with the Obama administration. So the United States either doesn't do negotiations, they do deception operations like last time, or even when there is an agreement, they don't follow through. They stop doing their part. So overall, people in Iran are not optimistic. The current government we have is a reformist government. They are always interested in negotiating with the US. They have given the US another chance to correct the past mistakes, realizing that the policy of the United States against Iran has not been productive for the United States in the last 47 years. They have tried to overthrow the Iranian government, do regime change operation, color revolutions, other schemes. They have failed. So Iran is giving the US another chance to see whether they want to correct the mistakes of the past, or they want to continue the failed policies of the past. And it's a decision that the US government needs to make.
So President Trump gave an ultimatum of 10 days. Correct me if I'm wrong. The end of the ultimatum is on Monday. So your prediction is that USA will attack. Finally, which is the percentage you give to a US attack?
You know, this idea of ultimatum is we don't have anything like that in international law. Attacking other countries is not allowed under international law. The US, if they want to use military force against Iran, they need to go to the UN Security Council, get a Chapter 7 resolution against Iran, and then they can use force. Threatening to attack another country is against international law. If you read the UN Charter, Article 2, it says you threat or use of force. Not only you should not be using force against others, you should not be threatening others. So Trump threatens to attack Iran every day, gives ultimatum, engages in this type of rhetoric, all against international law. But we are talking about the US government, which violates international law on daily basis. So that is not a surprise. No one in Iran will be surprised if the US attacks again, because the US government, the Israeli government, these are genocidal governments. They kill people. They engage in policies of death and destruction. This is what they have been doing throughout their history. But this time, Iran's response is going to be much more severe. The attack last time did not result in any US casualties. What we hear in Tehran is that the Iranian military leaders have been given instructions to make sure that at least the US casualties reach 500 soldiers, not less. Maybe more, but not less. And this is what's going to happen. If the US attacks Iran, they're not going to wait. They're going to respond immediately. We have about 50,000 US soldiers in this part of the world. Getting 500 out of 50,000, it's not going to be very difficult. There is this misconception in the United States that Iran is weakened, which is correct. Iran is weaker than, say, 2 years ago. But Iran still has tens of thousands of ballistic missiles. Iran has tens of thousands of drones. And they are going to be used against American targets, other countries that have been helping the United States. And they're quite deadly. they explode and they kill people. And this is very unfortunate. Iran doesn't want to have a war with the US. The hope that Iranian delegation has in Geneva is to reach an agreement. They have gone there in good faith. They want to actually reach an agreement. But if the US doesn't use this opportunity, you're going to see war.
The data equilibria is in favor of USA, but lately it was recorded that there were some new armament coming from Russia, maybe from China. And I read also some analyses that are saying that despite the fact that USA is powerful, has more power, Iran can win. How can that happen? Via the proxies? Because this is the biggest fear, I guess, both for USA and for Israel.
You know, the US has a proxy. It's called Israel. They attacked Iran both in June. Iran has friends that decide on what it's in their best interest, and they're not going to watch and see Iran attacked. They're going to help Iran. Iran has been helping these organizations, individuals in the past to free their countries. Iran has been helping Palestinians, Lebanese, others. And the point that we hope that the US government realizes is that this is going to be a regional war. It's not going to be limited to Iran's borders. The American interests, Israeli interests, interests of other countries that have been helping these two regimes is going to be targeted, whether they believe that or not. The hope is that they believe that. If they don't, they're going to see the result of another attack on Iran.
So which other method of pressure from Tehran we can see the forthcoming days if finally USA attacks? Which are other keys of pressure, I would say?
You know, when Iran is right next to the Strait of Hormuz, you have a substantial amount of oil and gas passing through the Strait of Hormuz. If there is war, that strait is not going to be safe for travel. So that will be closed for some time until things get back to normal. That's going to put pressure on oil prices and gas prices. This is not something that Iran is interested in. Iran doesn't want to fight the United States. That's why we have the Iranians going to Geneva. But if Iran is attacked, then Iran will use all levels of power to make sure that this idea of attacking Iran every few months is stopped. The Iranian leaders realize that if attacking Iran is cost-free, then US, Israel will attack Iran every other month if they decide that they can do it without any negative effects on them. So overall, the hope is that the Trump administration realizes that the cost of war is too much, and they realize that American soldiers don't need to die. We have to wait and see whether Trump is interested in America first or Israel first. If he wants to do America first, he would reach an agreement with Iran in Geneva. If he wants to do Israel first, he will go to war. Netanyahu has been wanting to attack Iran using American soldiers. Whether he will listen to Netanyahu, sacrifice American lives for the Israeli interests, that's one option. The other option is do America first. Engage with Iran economically. You know, the American companies are prohibited to be in Iran, and the prohibition is not on the Iranian side. It's because of the laws of the US Congress. It's their government, their Congress, that does not allow American companies to work with Iran. He can benefit. You know, Iran has a population of over 90 million. Iran's size is more than half of Europe. Iran could benefit, US could benefit from normalized relations. The current reformist government is available for these type of engagements. We have to wait and see how much influence Netanyahu has in the White House.
So you think that the real reason behind the forthcoming, let's say, USA attack is Israel? Why Donald Trump at this moment decided to declare war against Iran? Which is the real reason? Is it the nuclear program? Because we know that the USA jumped out, withdraw from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018. So, which is the real reason?
The real reason is not Iran's nuclear program, because the best way to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon is to have return to that 2015 agreement. Under that agreement, Iran could enrich uranium no more than 3.65%. In order to build a nuclear weapon, you need to enrich more than 90%. And you cannot find any nuclear scientist that would tell you that you can make a nuclear weapon with that low-grade uranium. And Iran accepted extensive inspections of its nuclear sites in the 2015 agreement. So the best way to make sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon program is to have an agreement like that, either return to that or come up with a similar agreement. Trump can call that the Trump agreement and declare victory. That's an option that he has.
Which is the real reason?
So the main reason is not Iran's nuclear program. That's for sure. It could be, the U.S. is basically doing what Netanyahu wants in the last year. And it could be because of the influence of the Israeli lobby. It could be because of the Epstein files. We know that Trump has been raping young girls, threatening to kill young girls. I think the Israelis, Epstein used to work for Mossad. I think they have videos of Trump. They have threatened probably Trump that these videos will be released if Trump doesn't listen to what the Israelis want. So that may be an option. There are different opinions in Iran on why Trump is doing Israel first. Is it because of his son-in-law? People wonder. But what we know is that having a military attack on Iran is not in the interest of United States. There are going to be young soldiers killed. Young soldiers have young families. It's going to be sad. And it's not in the interest of the United States. But we have to wait and see whether Trump wants to basically follow the lead from Israel, or he wants to decide for his own country.
So we have only 10 minutes, so let's rush for the next questions. There is a question of the last clashes in Tehran and the whole country due to the economic crisis, began from that and then spread. If they were in a way being motivated by foreign centers, foreign intelligence, in which extent, and how many were really the dead? And because there is a different, numbers are coming from different sides. So let's answer to these questions, and then we will continue with in which extent right now the Iranians are psychologically and practically ready for this attack and united from a US attack. So let's start from the protests, which began for the economic crisis and then spread. If there was a finger from the foreign countries, we know which, and how many were really the dead.
As you said, initially we had normal protests in the first couple of days. But in Greece you have protests on economic issues, and when you have protests in economic issues, you don't have
and a lot for Palestine and Gaza. Yes.
When you have protests in Greece or other European countries, protesters don't start shooting at the police. When you start shooting at the police, in English they don't call that a protest. They call that killing police. They call that riots, deadly riots. We lost about 3,000 people, including more than 200 police officers. Iranian police is trained. They have weapons. The reason police gets killed is because Iranian police was given instruction not to shoot back. And they didn't have the permission to do that. And that is why we lost over 200 police. The reason the instruction was not to shoot back was because the Iranian government realized that they want to do another Libya in Iran. They want to create some sort of a civil war and then attack Iran in support of one side. And that is why the Iranian government wanted to make sure that the number of dead people is not a lot. We had these gunmen shooting at police. We had gunmen shooting at shopkeepers that did not listen to the demands of doing strikes. The Pahlavi, the Shah's son, had asked for general strikes, and we had these gunmen shooting shop owners because they refused to listen to that general strike. And the number that the U.S. government gives is extremely exaggerated. It's given so they can demonize Iran, so they can have some excuse to attack Iran. The Iranian government released the names of every single person that was killed in January with their ID numbers. And the US government or the Pahlavis or others have not given one extra name. They could not come up with one extra name. So the data that the Iranian government provided is accurate. Out of this, about 3,000 people, 2,400 people were either police officers or the people who were killed by gunmen, and about 600 are people who were killed by the other side. Towards the end of the riots, Iranian government gave permission to Iranian police to use force, and that was the result. They started shooting back at gunmen later during the riots.
Professor, let me interrupt you. Is it possible to send you a new link for a half hour to do even 10 minutes because the time is running out?
Okay, I think we are done. Let me just finish my thought, and then if you
because
need
I
more,
want also to ask you about the goal of Pahlavi, because what he wants, and to ask you also for one more question, please. Can we have? Okay, I will send you. I will send you. Okay, so continue.
Yeah. The fact that Mossad was organizing these riots is not something that an Iranian professor is telling you. Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, the former Secretary of State, sent the Mossad agents New Year greetings. He hasn't taken that off. You can go to his Twitter account and see. The Israelis were working. Israel put pressure on Iranian economy with the hope of some people getting tired of the economic hardship. So they have normal protests so they could come and take over these protests to do regime change operations. This is the plan they had. This is what they implemented. They killed a lot of Iranians and they were not successful. They are not going to be successful because you saw what happened after these riots. We had millions of Iranians coming to the streets, demonstrating against Trump, demonstrating against Netanyahu. Some of these people did not like government policies, but they don't want their country to be destroyed. They remember what happened in Syria. They don't want their country attacked. The last time the US attacked Iran, we had this rally around the flag effect. People became united because they realized who Netanyahu is. They realized who Trump is. They know that they are not interested in human rights. They know what they did in Palestine. So overall, I think, the average IQ in Iran is no less than average IQ internationally. They realize what's going on. The people who support Pahlavi are a tiny, tiny minority. I don't want to say less than 1% of the population because that would be too much.
very important to note that the son of Pahlavi, the last Shah, giving interviews, he declares that he wants to participate to the new era of his country. He wants to support the country. He's interested in the future of the country, a democratic, or he's not very clear to in which form which form will take the constitution if he returns. So how do you find his interviews, and what do you believe is the plan? Is there any negotiations between Pahlavi and the son of the last Shah and USA and I don't know which other country for his return to Iran? And how do you find this scenario? Is it possible?
Pahlavi, the father, was one of the most corrupt rulers of the 20th century. If you go to old Amnesty International reports, Iran was number one in political prisoner torture, in violence against political dissent during the Pahlavi's time. Also, he was very corrupt. You go to a report of Washington Post. If you want, I can send you the link. The Pahlavis stole $20 billion when they were leaving Iran. Iran was very poor. Ordinary citizens were very poor during Pahlavi's tenure. And they managed to, this is a Washington Post report, they managed to steal about 20 billion with a B dollars when they were leaving Iran, flooding Iran in 1979. And Iranians remember that. Some people, of course, were not alive during Pahlavi. This is 47 years ago. But they have heard these stories from their parents, from their grandparents. The 1979 revolution was a popular revolution. Why was it popular? It was because the country's ruler was very corrupt. He came into power in a 1953 coup. Americans installed him, and he was never in the service for the service of his countrymen. He was in the service of the United States, and people realized that. Now we have his son, who has been living off these $20 billion for the last 47 years, claiming to be the king of the country. The support they have in Iran is extremely limited. During the riots, at most, Iran has a population of about 90 million. At most, they could gather about a couple of 100,000 people, something not more than that, in a country that has a population of over 90 million. And the reason they're not popular in Iran at all is because of the history of the father. The father was a fascist. His grandfather was a fascist. He's a fascist. He visited Israel 2 times in the middle of genocide. And he's asking foreign countries to attack his country. How can you be the king of a country and ask foreigners to attack your country? And this is what he's asking. So they, in political science literature, they don't call people like Pahlavi opposition. They are mercenaries. They are working for foreign governments to do what foreign governments want to happen. This is what his father did. This is what
they are well known, all these things about the Shah and his notorious police, etc., and the tortures to his political enemies and all these things. But the thing is, do you believe that there is a possibility after a hard strike of USA, after the war, the return of Pahlavi, despite he's not so popular as you say right now in Iran, because people remember his father's regime? What do you think? This is the plan A of the foreign powers for Iran, the return of Pahlavi, or they have a different one? Or they have their own people there in Iran to collaborate with them because we saw what happened, for example, in Venezuela. Nobody could ever believe that the vice president would collaborate with USA. And that's why there are analysts who are saying that there would be probably a Delcy, the name of the vice president of Venezuela in Iran, in a possible transition that USA and Israel will conduct.
You know, the aim of the United States is to balkanize Iran, disintegrate Iran, basically take out the oil-rich southern part of Iran, put a puppet government there, and then the rest of the country without access to oil money would become very poor. And then it would disintegrate, different parts would go their separate ways. And in the middle, they would put some weak person, whether it's Pahlavi or not. I doubt it if Pahlavi, he has been living in the US for 47 years. He's being utilized to achieve foreign policy goals of Israel and United States. But I don't think they take him seriously because he's not a serious man. He's a spoiled child that is even weaker than his father was. So I don't think they're working to actually bring him back. I think they're using him to create this type of problems for Iran. And I don't think you will have the scenario that you saw in Venezuela, because the country's political system is much more unified. And the system of government here, given the fact that it came out of a popular revolution, represents ideas that cannot be taken unseriously when it comes to governance. And remember, Venezuela didn't have the Israeli problem because of the Israeli influence. The aim of balkanizing Iran is the aim of the Israeli government, and they have managed to basically make the US government go along with that policy. And if the aim is to disintegrate Iran, then you don't want to put a leader in Tehran that would actually engage in some level of economic cooperation with Iran. With regard to Venezuela, US was interested in Venezuelan oil, and they're getting Venezuelan oil. So that's it, they're done. But with Iran, even getting Iranian oil is not going to be enough, because the problem they have is with the country and because of Israel. So basically, the Israelis want to overthrow the current government because the current government doesn't allow disintegration of Iran. And they want to do to Iran what they did in Syria. Once the Assad government fled, then they started bombing Syria every day. They continue to bomb Syria after about 2 years. And they want to do the same. The Israelis want the countries in this part of the world to be weak, to be dependent on the US and Israel. They want to dominate the whole region. Now they're talking about greater Israel. They want to take over lands from Syria and Iraq and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Egypt. This is the aim they have. They're not going to be able to become successful. Iran is fighting for Iran, and Iran is fighting for the civilized world, because we are facing the Epstein class. And these people have military might, but the culture of resistance in Iran will continue to make sure that Iran survives. Okay, sorry.
So yes. So I realize that the Iranian people will never accept somebody who is being brought from abroad and put in power centrally in Tehran. But tell me, which are the scenarios of power transition? Is a very possible one, Mr. Ali Larijani, to be the next leader? And what if a plan that USA has also with Israel is the decapitation of the leadership of Iran? We know that they have done that to the guards of revolution, to the leadership of them, of the army, and to many nuclear scientists, for example. So, in the scenario of decapitation of the leadership of Iran, then what is the plan that Iran has right now, the state of Iran, the government?
No, there is not going to be any power transition. The US is going to fail. Even if they attack Iran, they're not going to achieve their goals like last time. They couldn't achieve their goals last time. This time, they're going to pay a much heavier price and not achieve their goals. Iran has a constitution. Under that constitution, you have the president elected every 4 years by popular vote. And then you have the leader that is elected by assembly of experts, and members of this assembly are elected by the people. So either you have direct vote of people for president or indirect vote of people for the leader. And if the leader, he is aging, and this assembly could change, they have the power to change the leader if they want to. Whether the leader passes away or the assembly decides to change the leader, they have that power to do so. Then they take a vote and they elect a new leader. And this is how Iran functioned. Iran's first leader was Imam Khomeini. After his passing, the current leader was elected by the Assembly of Experts. There are about 80, 85, 86 people that will do the same whenever the time comes for a new leader to be elected. The Israelis and Americans are going to fail. You're not going to see a greater Israel. Iran will not allow that. Iran is going to make sure that the Israelis and American plans of domination and hegemony in the Middle East is going to fail the same way it has failed in the last 47 years.
Yes. So I read analysis, and of course I read what the leadership of Iran is saying. But I'm wondering, in the case of a war with the USA, has Iran recovered really from the 12 days war? And on the other hand, the axe of resistance is weaker than it was till 2024, 2025. So there is something here is not fitting very well. How can really Iran retaliate in the way that it wants to do it if, from the one hand, it hasn't recovered from the 12 days war, and on the other hand, the axe of resistance is weaker than it was?
Iran has recovered from the damages that the country suffered last time. And as I said, although it's true that the axis of resistance is weaker, Iran still has tens of thousands of ballistic missiles and drones. And Iran is going to use that this time. Last time, Iran didn't use these military capabilities against the US. This time, Iran is going to use it. It's going to basically punch Trump in the face. And he will realize that what Netanyahu has been telling him, that attacking Iran is cost-free, he realizes that was a wrong analysis. And he's going to do basically with Iran what he did with North Korea. Once he realized that he cannot get rid of the North Korean government, then he forgot about it. He's going to forget about Iran once he loses a few hundred soldiers in this part of the world. That's what's going to happen.
So tell me something. If the war starts, then what Tehran expects from Russia and China? Because we don't see them participate really when something begins. I don't know if they are working at the back place.
Iran's defense policy was orchestrated to be self-sufficient. Iran has good relations with countries like Russia and China. They realize that if Iran's government faces serious difficulties, it's not in their interest. You know, China gets over 50% of its oil and gas from the Persian Gulf. Today, the US doesn't put pressure on countries like Saudi Arabia or UAE or Kuwait when they sell oil to China, because that would increase the value of Iranian oil. But if they can get rid of Iran, then this would be an opportunity for the US government to put pressure on China, a pressure that they don't have, they cannot do right now. This idea of tariffs is not going to put pressure on China, but putting pressure on China's energy needs is going to be a serious problem for China. The same thing is true with Russia. You look at the map, the western borders of Russia is closed. You got the North Pole in the north, and the eastern borders is South Korea and Japan. And then the southern border, you have Turkey, which is a NATO member, and you have Iran. Then you have Afghanistan that's not as stable, and China. So Iran is going to be important for Russia. They realize that if Iran's government falls, Iran is going to become another Ukraine, a place to put pressure on Russia. They realize that. So the relationship between Iran and Russia and China are good.
But will they help? Will they help? Will they do something?
We don't know. We don't know whether they would help or not. But what we do know is that Iran is capable of inflicting enough damage on the United States without the help of Russia and China.
So tell me something. The Iranian society is really tired from the economic crisis, which is in an extent due to the sanctions, the American sanctions. But right now, is the Iranian society ready for a war? How is the Iranian society at this point? Because we had the demonstrations, the demonstration in the universities continue right now, because this is another capital from what is going on at the external politics. Tell me what is going on with the society, the Iranian, which is the most important factor in the developments in Iran.
The Iranian society, a good portion of Iranian society is tired of these sanctions. That's very normal. But they realize that Trump and Netanyahu taking over Iran is not going to create a better life for them. Iran turning to another Syria or Libya is not going to be good for ordinary Iranian citizens. Disintegration of the country, balkanization of the country. No one likes his or her country to end up in this manner. That is why there is this culture of resistance against these type of foreign pressures. At university, I teach at University of Tehran. Nothing in our campus. In some campuses, few, just a dozen people, maybe 50 people, show up slogans, and the students that oppose in numbers are much bigger. But you don't hear that from corporate media, because if you want to demonize Iran, you need to suppress the fact that a good portion of the Iranian population, a good portion of the student body actually opposes Trump and Netanyahu. They don't want you to hear that because it doesn't fit the frame they want to create about Iran. They want to say Iran is a police state. If you have a police state, how can you lose more than 200 police? They want to basically demonize Iran so they can find some excuse for Trump to attack Iran. These media outlets are generally controlled by the Zionist lobby, and they are doing their job. The job of independent journalists is to present the facts as they are.
But there is also a need for reforms. You mentioned twice that the reform is now government, etc. Have been really deployed reforms in Iran the last years? Because we haven't heard, we don't know something about that. We haven't heard because it is a demand of the Iranian society, the reforms, of course. We are in 2026. The regime is there 47 years. There's a need of development, of a free frame, so without any suppression. So which steps have been made, and which steps is the regime willing to do from to this direction, which is a demand? This is something indifferent with what which are the goals of USA and Israel, because it's obvious that they are not interested in the freedom of the society of Iran.
You know, this reformist government we have believes in neoliberal policies when it comes to economy. And so Iranian government historically had subsidies on basic food items. And what they have done in the last few months is to eliminate all these subsidies. And this is why you had the value of Iranian currency diminished, because of these neoliberal policies. Whether that is reform or not, some argue this is not reform. Following neoliberal thoughts in economic policy is not reform. But this is what the government has done in terms of economy. So they have eliminated subsidies. They have provided electronic money for lower segments of society, so they can buy these food items that are higher in price because there are no subsidies on food. The prices are higher, but they have provided electronic money, basically gift cards to the lower segments of society, so they could use that money to buy these food items that are more expensive because of this policy. And in terms of political openness, you mentioned, we have a few students, not too many, who are participating. You know, the school, the winter semester, the spring semester basically started about 10 days ago. So we have few students here and there that are chanting slogans. As I said, the students who oppose them are much greater in number. But this reformist government is not doing anything about these students. They come to campus, they start chanting. Since these are normal protests,
yes, but
there's no shooting.
Professor, I'm asking you about the reforms that are needed for the society, for the women's rights, for all these things that we know that last year there were also demonstrations because the women wants to have the rights that the women in the rest world, not the Arabic, have. And what about these issues? Where are we going to see
Western
reform?
Propaganda.
This is propaganda. Okay.
It's propaganda. They want to portray that Iranian women are not free. You know, majority of Iranian students, 60% are female. We got 60% female students, 40% men students. Women can engage in all types of activities that women are interested in. We have many great scientific women. Some of these ballistic missiles are made by female engineers in Iran. They do athletics, they engage in science. We have a lot of professors. You know, I teach American studies at the University of Tehran. The first year we had a PhD program, we could accept 5 students, and all 5 ended up to be female. Why? Because they were better students. They got higher scores for coming in. The Western governments and Western media outlets, the Zionist, generally Zionist media outlets, want to demonize Iran. They know that in some parts of the Arab world, women are suppressed. It's true. But that's not Iran. That's in other places. And they want to use that mindset when they talk to a Western audience to say that Iranian women are suppressed. That's not the case. Iranian women actually fought during the 8 years of Iran-Iraq war, which was Saddam was supported at that time by Western governments. They engage in all type of social activities, last time it's true, we had a female that passed away. She was not killed. The video is available. She had prior medical condition and she passed away. And they said that the police had killed her. That was a lie. And they started another lie 2-3 years ago when they called it a freedom movement for women, all framing to find some excuse to attack Iran, to sanction Iran. Don't believe these things. And I hope you come to Iran, you talk to Iranian women, and you realize that these are propaganda talking points by Zionist outlets.
I agree with you, Professor, but what about the issue of headscarf? Of course, now it is not the big issue, headscarf, because you are in front of a war, but why should Iranian women who are scientists, who also work for the ballistic missiles, for the nuclear program, have to wear headscarf? Still, till now in 2026, why the government is not promoting a reform to this issue, for example?
Have you seen pictures of Iranian streets? They're available online. You can.
So there has been a reform then. There has been a reform, and it permits women to walk and to move outside of the...
Woman, as you know, I'm talking to you from Tehran. So I go out, you have some people who are wearing chador. So this is a very traditional Iranian clothing, full covering. There are some people who have less covering. There are some people who have no scarf. This is the reality in Iran. This is the reality in Iran.
So right now, in front of the war, you don't have any lack of products, and the Iranian society, you can assure us that it is united against this attack around together with the government, with the regime, which is now the atmosphere in Tehran, for example.
The atmosphere is the culture of resistance. They don't want their country to be attacked. They don't like the Epstein class. They don't like Trump. They don't like Netanyahu. They don't like people who rape young girls. They don't like people who engage in genocide. They don't want their country to be ruled by these type of people. That's the atmosphere. Just, Iranians, as I said, their IQ is no less than international IQ. They look at Trump and they realize who he is. They look at Netanyahu, they realize who he is. They are not supporting Trump or Netanyahu or Pahlavi or people who work for these people.
So, Professor Izadi, thank you so much for this conversation. And
You're
I
welcome.
hope that there will not be, the attack will be held, and you will not have to face a war for no reason right at this point.
We are going to be ready for it. There could be a war, and I think the Iranians will teach Trump a lesson if he engages in an attack on Iran.
So thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.